Hi guys, welcome back. It's been kind of a long time since I have posted and I miss that. So yeah, let's jump in. So today I'm working on a watercolor painting and I've been feeling the urge to really re-examine my entire process of the mediums that I use, why I'm using them. Do I enjoy it? Is there something that I could use that's better? I don't know. I've been feeling the itch to try things differently and to find things that I can enjoy more. And a lot of that is just going to be a little bit of trial and error and a little bit more staying present while I'm working so that I can look for things that I'm maybe less pleased with in the process. Anyways, all that to say, I love having the desire, I guess you could put it, to look for ways that I can experiment and try out new things with what I'm using when I'm painting. So today I tried mostly a new thing for the line work and I am super excited about it. It really made it a lot easier. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get closer to that step. But I really played this painting by ear. Oftentimes usually I fully plan out my paintings. I figure out where all the colors go and then I create it and I paint it. And I find that is when I get the best results, or at least the most consistent results. But every once in a while, I feel like just going with the flow with the painting, and this one was one of them. So I had like kind of a general thought process of what colors I wanted to use to create this, but it was more like a categorical. I wanted to use my ultramarine blue and one of my more saturated cool tone pinks, and then in my mind I just kind of like layered them together and thought about which ones I wanted to pair together, and then I just kept the palette very close. So I had my three very bright primary colors, and then I didn't use any other secondaries except for a moon glow, I think is what I used. Anyways, that helps a lot when you're just kind of playing with the colors as you're working on it. Being able to just keep it very limited, it keeps things very harmonious without necessarily having to try really hard or plan it out. So that was something that made it a lot easier to make sure that it didn't get overly chaotic as I was playing with it. Oh, and this original painting is available at my shop, so if you'd like to give her a new home, there's a link down in the description that'll take you over there. Oh, and I remember what 4 colors I used for this painting. It was quinacridone gold, quinacridone red, and ultramarine blue, and then finally some moon glow from Daniel Smith. I love these colors in particular. I tend to reach for these as my like favorite blue, red, and yellows. And it was really fun to just really narrow it down and only use those. They create really bright, saturated mixes, so I tend to really love how they look when they're layered together. And so that was really nice to be able to just say, these are the only paints I'm using. I actually ended up just carrying the tubes around, and I just had a ceramic mixing dish that I brought with me. I actually ended up painting in 2 different locations while I was working on this, so it was nice to have a little bit more mobility than feeling like I needed to be tied to my full studio palette, which I've been kind of pulling away from lately. I haven't been feeling as inspired to play with that as much as I have in the past, so I've actually been trying to go more with the ceramic palette and having the paints more on tap than I used to. So anyways, that method works, like I'd already mentioned, but it works so well for when you just kind of want to play with something. You don't necessarily have a plan. If you give yourself a limited amount of paints to use, it helps it to stay cohesive. So different areas in your painting, if you need to create mixes, they'll have that similarity, that tie between one area to the next. So you won't get things that are radically different on accident, at least. And it also just helps just get into the flow. You don't have to double think about what blue you're going to draw from or what yellow, or if you're going to use a mixture. And it's nice to be able to just say, okay, I just have these, and then I can just go for it. So I love that method when it happens to be a painting that works well for that. For this one, it felt right with the subject matter of the character and the flowers being, at least I had planned on it being fairly warm and purpley with some blue undertones. Anyways, it was really enjoyable to just get into the flow with this painting. And all of these flowers, I did do it a little bit differently than I normally would. And I wanted to explore more how I could approach flowers, how I could glaze and layer to potentially create more of a dynamic and interesting layering effect with the watercolors. I don't know. I was very all over the place when it came to the techniques and the flowers. Like that first one that I did, I went in first with just the blue and I established some of the shadows, and then I added darker shadows, and then I did a glaze on top of it with pink, and then other areas I started with the pink, and other flowers I created this blended on wet wash. It was all sorts. There was all sorts of techniques going on, but somehow I think it turned out, and it did help me to experiment and play around with how I want to think about florals when it comes to painting them. So I think really just the biggest thing that I was experimenting, if you could call it that, with this painting was just being a little bit more present with each approach that I took for every step for when I was painting it. So I could see, why am I choosing to do that? Can I do it a little differently and enjoy that process? Can I do it differently and get a different look that I'm looking for? Anyways, it was just mostly just staying more present throughout the process. But the biggest and most exciting advancement that I had while I was working on this painting is with the line work, like I had teased at the beginning. So I do my line work with acrylic gouache. So it's basically just acrylic paint, but it is matte when it dries. So it works perfectly with watercolors. It has that same finish. And I always mix the line work with just water. And I will oftentimes struggle with getting the right consistency so that it flows smoothly and I can create really long, luscious lines. But sometimes I really struggle to get it thin enough for it to do that. So then it ends up being a bit of a struggle and a fight through the whole thing. And when I add too much water, then the lines can bleed. It becomes too transparent. So there really is this very fine line, excuse the pun, but a very specific amount of water that I can add before it just breaks it down or isn't enough. So I struggle with it. It's not comfortable to use oftentimes, I find, but it hit me that what I'm using, it's just acrylic paint. And there are a lot of acrylic paint mediums out there. In fact, I have a couple of them, and I have matte medium. So matte medium I use to glue down my paper to my wood boards. So I use it all the time, but matte medium is a color extender. It can thin the paint. It does a couple of other things. It dries matte, so it already fits well. Anyways, it just struck me, I should play with that. I should see if I can get some good results with that. And if that feels like it's putting me in the right direction, I could look into other mediums. There's an airbrush medium and a very fluid medium. I know that I haven't really used them, but anyways, I used the matte medium and I completely replaced the water, and it just was a complete game changer. I was able to get a very thin consistency that was similar to ink, but it was still opaque enough to color or to cover up anything below it that I needed to keep it really tidy. But it also was just so smooth. So the process was just so much faster and more enjoyable. I mixed it up on a palette like I normally do, but then I put it in this little vial and then I added a little bit more of the matte medium. And I actually really like that. Transferring it into that kind of medium, it allowed me to get it even thinner and keep it very wet the entire process. So it wasn't drying out at all while I was using it. It was just a dream. It totally leveled up the line work process for me. But yeah, this painting was just a step in the direction of me reanalyzing what I want to do. I do think that I want to do more opaque painting. So I was doing oils a few years ago and I love the oils, but with my life circumstances right now and the fumes, honestly, I've gone solvent free and it still gives me a headache, and that kind of freaks me out, the idea of using something like that for years that I feel a physical effect from. Anyways, for now, it is not in the cards. So I think that I actually want to get into maybe using actual, I say actual like it's like it's a different animal, but acrylic paints. I would like to try that out and see if I can get the effects that I would like, the kind of painting that I wish that I could be painting with my oils. That's one of the big ones that I think just would be really fun to experiment with and play with. And I think that, like with a lot of things, if I open myself up to that and I let myself explore and play with opaque mediums like that, that my watercolor paintings will also feel more enjoyable and fun, because everything I'm doing with watercolors will be well suited for it, and everything that's better suited for more of an opaque approach can be used with those paints. So yeah, I think that would be really fun. So that's hopefully going to come soon, some more opaque painting. I am going to use my acrylic gouache in the meantime to get a feel for it and make sure that I'm liking that kind of painting process. So there'll probably be some experimental painting videos coming up of that. But anyways, I'm just excited. I'm excited to try out new things, to explore. So adding this medium to the line art process for me was actually kind of a game changer. So I got to this method after a lot of trial and error. So I've tried basically every other line making medium possible that is compatible with watercolors, and there have been reasons after reasons for each of those not working. And ultimately, the acrylic gouache ended up being the best fit. It's matte, it's paint so that I can mix exactly what color I want, which was a big thing for me. I did not want to be limited by a very small color selection. So anyways, there's a lot of reasons why I came to this, but it's not foolproof, and it oftentimes is really frustrating to use. I find that it's just, some days I just have an off day where I just can't quite get the mixture right, and then I end up struggling through it. And then instead of the line work process being really enjoyable like it can be, where it just feels so satisfying to create these clean lines that just finish everything off and polishes it, instead it ends up being this fight and this struggle, and I just cannot wait to get done with it, and I hate that. I want to be able to enjoy it. It's been one of my favorite steps for as long as I can remember. Anyways, all that to say, I was considering going back and looking at new options, which I always can do, and I do enjoy trying out new things, but I was feeling like I just need to move on. Maybe I need to find a different type of paint. And this really solved the problem for me. This is the first painting that I've done it on, so I think I need to get it a little bit more in the rotation. I can do a couple more paintings where I can see if there's flaws, if it just happened to be that the day before, because this was actually kind of a contrast where the day before I was really struggling to paint part of her hair. It was a fight. I saved the paint that I did have, and then the next day it struck me that I could use this medium, and then it was just like night and day. So it could be that one day I just wasn't in the zone, I wasn't mixing it right, and the next day I was. I don't know, but I'm gonna experiment. I'm going to do several more paintings like this, and I'm hoping that it just unlocks it and makes everything nice and smooth. So my other alternative that I've thought about testing out is there are I think it's golden paints. Wow. Golden paints make a fluid acrylic, and I have a couple of those paints that I use for like special effects. And they're very thin. They also have one step thinner, and I cannot remember what line of paint that's called, but they market that as being an ink-like consistency. So I may try that as well. It potentially could have some of the issues that colored ink has, where it's not fully opaque, and it could potentially have a gloss to it since it's like more of a traditional acrylic paint. Anyway, so those are things for me to consider. I can also consider using a different medium. So there's like an airbrush medium that will super thin out acrylic paints, and that would be the next step too, from using my acrylic wash and then using that in it and getting it really, really thin and really smooth. So I think there could be steps to take it even farther if the matte medium that I do have is taking me closer, but not exactly where I want to be. I don't know, but this is very exciting. I love experimenting. I love feeling like I'm getting closer to a more perfect process. I love that. Well, and as I work on paintings, as the years go by, what I want to achieve and how I want to work shifts too. So it feels like this like never-ending hunt for the perfect technique or set of techniques and mediums. And I think that that's really fun and exciting. It makes things feel like this hunt that I can just continue going on, looking for the perfect way to create art. I'm very excited about it though. It feels like I'm going down the right path. And don't forget, this original painting is available at my shop. There's a link down in the description that will take you over there if you'd like to give her a new home and adopt her. I would be so excited to send her off to a new place. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are amazing. I am so grateful to every single one of you. But that is it for today. So I will see you guys next time. And it won't be as long as it was last time before you see me again. So again, thank you for watching. I'll see you then.